Okay, so I think those people who want to leave have left. So, as usual, make yourself sit comfortably. And tonight's talk is going to be on loving kindness and metta. This Pali word metta essentially means like loving kindness. And the reason I want to talk about this is because it actually is a quality that the Buddha did mention a lot in the sutras. It is a quality which he said is very useful for the spiritual life. And it's useful in many, many different ways. So one of the first things I want to talk about is how this development, how this quality of metta actually is useful. What does it actually do to us? Why is it so useful, this quality of metta, loving kindness? And then the second half of the talk, I want to talk about how to actually develop loving kindness. What do we have to do? And here I want to talk about more than just meditation practice, but how to develop more kind of fundamental attitudes which help the development of metta. I'm going to talk a little bit about meditation as well, but more about the foundation stones which make that development of the meditation of metta possible in the first place. But first of all, I'd like to talk about what metta actually is. What sort of quality is metta? What does it actually mean? How do we experience metta? And the way to look at metta, to understand what loving kindness is to understand the opposite of metta. The opposite of metta is ill will or anger and all these negative qualities in our mind. And the Buddha described the way that ill will actually arises in the mind. And he said that the reason why ill will arises in the mind is because we are focusing on the negative or the repulsive aspect of something. When you're focusing on the repulsive, then ill will can very easily arise. It doesn't have to arise, but it can easily arise. So metta is the opposite of ill will. Loving kindness is the opposite of ill will. So loving kindness is therefore the focus on the positive or the good aspect in something or somebody. And when we see that positive and good aspect, the feeling that can come with that seeing of the positive is this feeling we call loving kindness. It's a warmth towards other beings, towards other creatures and people around us. And then when we see the positive aspect in something, then we are able to arouse that intention, that desire for that being or for that person or whatever it is to actually be happy. We can arouse that desire within us, that wanting this being to be happy, to be well. But first of all, we have to have this positive view of this person before we can arouse that intention. And then when that intention becomes stronger, more powerful, then it also comes with it a feeling. And this feeling which comes with it, this is the feeling of loving kindness, of metta. The feeling which comes with desiring and wanting somebody else to be happy, somebody else to be content and have peace and have a good life. So that in brief is metta, what it is and what it's all about. And now I want to talk about the purpose of metta. What does it give rise to? Why should we even bother doing it? And the first two things I want to talk about are, for me, maybe the first but the most important reasons why metta is so powerful. And the first one I think is very obvious. It's because it feels good. If you have metta within you, if you have a sense of seeing always the positive in other people, seeing the good in others, you feel good about yourself. You feel good inside. And of course, this is one of the most important reasons why we even practice a spiritual life. It's because we want more happiness in our lives. Happiness for ourselves and also happiness for others. So metta has this enormous potential for making us feel good about ourselves. Self-esteem, because when you see the world in a positive way, it gives rise to a kind of positive form of self-esteem. Feeling good, feeling even confident and feeling happy, feeling at peace in almost all situations when you have this attitude within yourself. It's a wonderful feeling, and I think that is obviously a very important reason why we should practice this. Because, of course, at the end of the day, the whole purpose of the path of Buddhism is to bring suffering to an end, and to give rise to happiness in ourselves. And this is a very important aspect of this metta, loving-kindness practice. That is one of the important reasons. And the other very important reason is that it is a very powerful help for practicing virtue or morality in our lives. Why is it such a powerful help? Well, I think we all know, if you want to practice the 5 precepts, for example, we all know that sometimes, maybe not just that, but any kind of morality you want to practice, sometimes it can be very difficult. And it can be difficult because our habits are often so ingrained and so powerful that even when we try to be kind, we often find it so hard because situations seem to go against us. We meet the same old person who does the same old thing, and it gives rise to the same old irritation, time and time again. And of course, the people that often gives most problems for us are often the people who are closest to us, because that's where our habits are the strongest. Family members, husband and wife, child and parents, that is where often the habits are the strongest, and where often it can be most difficult to actually change our habits. Now, so the beautiful thing then about loving kindness, that instead of always just trying to restrain ourselves, always trying to hold back, forcing ourselves to do good against our habits, we're actually doing something with the underlying problem. We're changing our attitude. And by changing that attitude, by seeing the other person in a positive light, in a good way, of course, that morality, that kindness comes much, much, much more naturally. And then eventually, by slow progress, step by step, doing things in a systematic way, you will find that one day these habits that we had before, they become less and less powerful until one day we realize we're not reacting anymore in the same way that we used to. We're actually reacting in a completely different way. We have changed ourselves. We're reacting to the world in a different way from what we did before. So this is the power then of loving kindness. It actually gives us a very strong foundation for being more kind, for being more moral, for being more virtuous, because we are changing the mind states which give rise to action and speech. And from a good mind always follows good actions and good speech, of course. So for me, these two things, the fact that loving kindness gives rise to happiness for oneself, and also because it gives rise to ease of virtue, ease of morality. We don't have to force ourselves anymore. It happens almost automatically that we are kind and good. These two are probably the most powerful reasons, in my opinion anyway, certainly at the beginning of the path, for why this loving kindness is so important. And it's important to remember that it's often at the beginning of the path, if we take upon ourselves these precepts and things, often it can feel burdensome because we have to force ourselves. So to be able to take away that necessity of using force and using willpower makes the whole path so much more agreeable and so much more easy to practice. And this, of course, is a great advantage if we are going to have success in the spiritual life. So that is the two foundations, but there are many other reasons as well why loving kindness is useful. So the next thing I want to do is to focus on some of these other things. First of all, one of the beautiful things about loving kindness is that it gives a lot of energy to the mind, because loving kindness is a positive state. We see the world, we see people in a positive way. Because you see things in a positive way, you tend to have a positive attitude towards things. You feel energetic. You feel the mind is full of power and energy. And you want to go out and do those things which you know are right and good, and to do something positive in the world. Whether that is through your job or through whatever, that energy will be there. And you can see this, I think we all know that when the mind is depressed, or you are tired, or you are feeling a bit irritated, then often the energy lacks in the mind, particularly when you're depressed. Depression is almost the opposite as well of loving kindness. You don't have any happiness inside of you. And because of that, you don't have any energy here. I remember a few years ago there was, some people get so depressed they can't even get out of the house sometimes. And that is because, one reason, of course, is because they have no energy within them whatsoever. So loving kindness isn't the opposite of that. It brings energy to the mind because you have a positive attitude towards things, positive towards the world, positive to everything around you. That, of course, is a very, very useful quality, both in one's private life, professional life, and also in one's spiritual life. The second aspect, which is very useful, which loving kindness is very useful for, is for mindfulness. And I was talking about mindfulness here a few weeks ago. But the thing which makes mindfulness easy is if the present moment is very beautiful. Now, how do we make the present moment beautiful and attractive? We read the way you do that is by having a beautiful mind. If you have a beautiful mind, it's natural to want to be in the present moment because you feel good inside of yourself. Your real home, as Ajahn called it, is of course the mind. So if you have a beautiful mind, if you feel good about yourself, you feel good inside of yourself, you will want to be here and now. You don't want to go anywhere else. You don't want to fantasize about anything. You don't want to go into the future or recollect the past because the moment here and now is so beautiful. So loving kindness in this way gives rise to mindfulness. And mindfulness is, of course, a very important spiritual quality. It enables us to enhance our life because it becomes more rich and more real. And it also helps us to take more control and be more in charge of ourselves. It's a sense of power to have mindfulness, to be in the present moment. The next thing that mindfulness does, it helps with concentration practice, with meditation, with the ability to focus your mind on a single object, be it the breath or anything else. And why is that? Why is it that it is so powerful for concentration? And the reason is because loving kindness, it counteracts those hindrances which are a problem usually in our meditation practice. Well, take first of all desire, sensual desire. Now, because loving kindness is a state where you feel very fulfilled within yourself, you already feel happy, you feel at peace, you feel a sense of goodness, then of course there is no reason for the mind to go around searching for happiness anywhere else. And because you're not searching for happiness anywhere else, then you tend not to have so much desires for things, for sensual pleasures around you. You tend to be content in the present moment because the happiness is already there, the contentment is already there. You already have fulfillment. Desire is, of course, the opposite of being fulfilled. It's like having a lack within you. For the second hindrance for meditation is, of course, ill will, or negativity, or anger, etc., irritation, all these things. And of course, loving kindness is the exact opposite of ill will. Because it is the opposite of ill will, again, it subdues that hindrance and makes concentration, meditation, much more easy. Thirdly, sloth and torpor, the tiredness of the mind. You're not going to have much tiredness when the mind is clear, when the mind is bright, the mind is beautiful, because you want to be here. You want to be in the present moment. You want to be here and experience this wonderful state of loving kindness. So sloth and torpor, or it's actually not such an easy translation. Actually, better to call it drowsiness and tiredness, maybe. Drowsiness and tiredness will tend to be dispelled in a mind where you, again, which is beautiful and good. And lastly, restlessness is also one of those things that we're seeking for something somewhere else. The mind wants to go somewhere else. But again, if you're happy in the present moment, there's no reason why you should seek for that happiness anywhere else. The only hindrance maybe that loving kindness does not dispel completely is doubt, because doubt is of a slightly different category here. But even there, I think that loving kindness can be of some help, although it may not actually dispel the doubt completely here. So you can see here what's happening. All these hindrances tend to be subdued. They tend even to disappear completely when you're able to bring up this loving kindness inside of you. And for that reason, it is very useful for meditation practice. In fact, the Buddha himself, he said in one of the suttas where he talks about the benefits of loving kindness, he said that loving kindness leads to ease of concentration, ease of samadhi practice. If you have this mind state, it's not difficult to concentrate your mind and bring it together here. So, those are three very important qualities. And the last quality, which also is very important, is the quality of wisdom in our lives. And again, loving kindness is also useful for wisdom. And as I was saying here, again, I think last time, the reason why loving kindness is useful for wisdom is because it overcomes those hindrances which tend to distort reality, distort the way we look at the world. And to understand, again, how these things distort the world, these hindrances, take something like anger, like ill will, and reflect on how you act when you have ill will, and compare that to how you act when you don't have it. And as you will know, many times when you have ill will, you would often do things that you regret afterwards. You do some kind of act which you, at the time looks right, it feels like it's right, but afterwards, when you think about it, you regret that you did this particular thing. So how come that at one time an act seems right, but afterwards it seems wrong? When you're in your right mind, you don't have any ill will anymore, you regret what you did. And the reason why there is this difference is because at one stage your mind is distorted. You're not seeing properly. Your mind is like skewed. You can't see straight what actually is going on. And because of that, because you cannot see right, you are further away from wisdom. Your mind is not clear. You're not seeing things as they actually are in a proper way. You're seeing in a distorted way. And that's the problem with anger. It distorts reality. You cannot see what actually is in front of you. And it is exactly the same thing with desire. Desire also distorts reality. And one way of looking at this is think of sometimes you go shopping and sometimes you see something and you think, I must have this thing. And then you buy it and then maybe a few days later you wonder, why on earth did I buy that for? That ever happened to you? I know with myself, I sometimes at the monastery, one of the things that we buy at the monastery are sometimes books. And I see some kind of catalog somewhere, and I think, oh, this book, if I don't get this book, I don't know what I'm going to do. This book is so important. It might change my entire monastic life if I read this book. And then, of course, I realize that this is maybe a little bit dodgy, because usually, after a while, you start to understand that these kind of desires are not all that trustworthy. So usually what I do, I put that catalog to one side a couple of days, and after a couple of days, I think, well, what about that book I desired so much 2 days ago? And I think, well, actually, it's not so important after all. It doesn't really matter. If I get the book, it's fine. If you don't get it, it doesn't matter. And this is how desire distorts reality. It tends to see the positive in something when it isn't really there. It distorts the way we see things. So by removing ill will, by removing desire, we're actually increasing our clarity of mind. We're seeing things more properly. We're seeing things more as they actually are. And this is a very important aspect of wisdom on the Buddhist path. The more clear your mind is, the less defilements you have in the mind, the less distortions you have, the better placed you are to actually gain true wisdom. And this is a very important aspect of this wisdom. So you have seen now how this loving kindness, how it leads to energy in the mind, mindfulness, meditation practice, and also to wisdom. These are 4 very, very important qualities in Buddhism. And for those of you who maybe are Buddhists, been Buddhist for a while, you will realize that these qualities are what we call 4 of the 5 Indriyas. Indriyas are like powers of the mind, faculties of the mind. They are forces that make the mind able to make progress in the spiritual life. These are in particular the things that make spiritual progress possible. Without these spiritual faculties, progress is going to be slow. If you have these spiritual faculties, these spiritual powers, progress on the path is going to be much faster. So here you can see how actually loving kindness helps and supports 4 of these 5 faculties in a very powerful way. And because of that, you're increasing the speed at which you are practicing this path, increasing your ability to practice this path. So it becomes a very powerful support for the whole path. The last of these spiritual faculties is the final one, is often translated as confidence or maybe faith. And that is maybe not, I think even for that, loving kindness can be helpful, because we may be subduing some of that skeptical mind a little bit, some of that mind which is always seeking for faults everywhere. But ultimately, faith and confidence comes from understanding the teaching of the Buddha and then coming to an acceptance of it. That is slightly different. But generally speaking, loving kindness is a very powerful support for the spiritual life and for progress on the spiritual path. So that is obviously very important. In addition to these benefits, there are also much more worldly benefits. Actually, I should say first of all that the spiritual faculties, or these powers of the mind, not only are they important for the spiritual life, but they're also very important for any kind of life, your professional life or your family life. Whatever it is that you do in your life, you're going to have much more success with these kind of faculties and powers in your mind. These powers are what make you successful in almost anything you do, because the mind is clear, the mind is bright, you see clearly, you don't have distortions in your mind, and for this you have an ability to be much more successful, generally speaking. But there are also other advantages. I'm not going to talk too much about this, that the Buddha talked about. Some very simple little things that he also mentioned. One of them is, of course, that you tend to be dear to other people, you tend to become popular, because a person who has compassion and loving kindness is somebody people usually like. And certainly it cannot be a disadvantage to be liked in this world. It's hard to find anybody who feels that too liked by anybody else. That is a nice little extra you also get from having loving kindness and compassion. It makes you sleep much better. And I think this is actually something which is very useful for most people. For example, you can do a little bit of loving kindness meditation before you go to bed, just to make you sleep a little bit more better. And of course, if you sleep better, you wake up in the morning full of energy, bright, clear, ready for the day's work, instead of getting up feeling tired and negative. But you are kind of springing out of bed rather than dragging yourself out of bed. That, of course, is important, because if you have that energy, if you have that brightness from the very morning, it makes everything so much easier. It also makes it much easier to practice those spiritual qualities, the precepts, morality, whatever it is that you undertake in your daily life. So, those are some of the benefits of loving kindness. I tried to do the sales job. I don't know if I have really been all that, I'm not sure how successful I've been. But again, the 2 most important things, and I want to say this again, in my opinion, it makes you feel good to do loving kindness practice. And it increases that sense of goodness inside of you, stage by stage, day by day, over long, long periods of time. And it helps your practice of virtue and morality and kindness, which are such a tremendously important foundation on the Buddhist path. This is the most important thing here. And if you remember only that much, then I think you have a tremendous inspiration, basically, to help you practicing loving kindness. Now I want to move on to the practice itself. How do we actually go about this? And the first thing to remember about loving kindness meditation is that it's not just about meditation practice, not just about sitting down and wishing people well. Too often, people sit down and they say, may all beings be well, may all beings be happy, etc., etc. But it doesn't actually give rise to any feeling inside of them. It doesn't actually do anything. And of course, if that is all you do and it doesn't give rise to any feeling, then in a sense you may possibly be wasting your time. You may not be going very far with that meditation practice. The purpose here, by saying, may you be free of suffering, may you be happy, is to give rise to the sense of loving kindness inside of you. If it doesn't do that, it's not working, and you are, as I said, possibly wasting your time. So because of that, very often with loving kindness, we have to start somewhere else with more basic and simpler practices to actually attune the mind, to make it ready for experiencing these wholesome states of loving kindness. And the first thing to do is just simply to act and be kind and good in our daily lives. That is the most basic kind of loving kindness practice. People around you, see if you can do something nice, something good. See if you can change your attitude. See if you can change the way you deal with people. Can you say something nice to somebody who you don't normally say anything to, maybe? Can you do something which is kind and helpful to somebody? Try to put your heart into actually changing just your actions and your speech in daily life. And you will find that this already brings great benefits in your practice. And one of the reasons why it brings great benefits is because if you try deliberately to be kind and good in all your actions, you tend to have to drag your mind with you. It's very hard for the mind to be negative while you do good actions. By actually being good and kind, the mind tends to search for the positive in other people. It searches for the good aspects, which then helps you focus on the good qualities in other people. So this is already a good start. In this way, you're already changing your attitude, you're already changing the way that you're doing things and looking at things. And the other thing which is very nice about being kind, that sometimes when we say things which are nice, say something which goes to somebody's heart, we do something good, sometimes what happens is we get very positive responses. And when we get a positive response from somebody, then again we see the good thing in that person. We see the positive in that person. It helps us to see those beautiful aspects in other people. So in this way, just by doing that much, just by trying to be kind, trying to be good, we are already practicing this loving kindness. And one of the things which has always struck me about Buddhism, very often we talk about precepts, and precepts, of course, is about not doing negative things, avoiding the killing, avoiding the stealing, and all these things. But sometimes we forget that virtue in Buddhism is also about the opposites of doing the negative things. We should actually positively do the good things in life. And it's important to remember that it's all good and well to avoid doing all the negative things. Of course we should do that. But it's also about developing the positive things. Because in this way you are actually propelling and helping yourself, traveling much faster on that path than if all you do is just avoiding the negative things. Indeed, when you read the way that the Buddha actually talked about morality, it is always about avoiding the negative and doing the positive, doing the opposite. So again, remember that is part of Buddhist morality, to actually do the good aspects as well, the good side of things as well. So that is the first thing about loving kindness practice. Practice it through speech and action, first of all. Now the second thing about loving kindness practice is that we should change our perception of things, change the way we look at people, look at situations, look at the world around us. Because by changing our perceptions, we're actually changing our minds from being negative to being positive instead. And this is very, very important if the loving kindness is going to work for us. Because, as I said before, if you're going to be able to wish somebody well, if you're going to be able to say to people, may you be happy, may you be free of suffering, first of all, you're going to have a positive perception of that person, a positive perception of that animal, positive perception of that country, or whatever it is that you're spreading loving kindness towards. So change your perception of things. Now, who should we change our perception of? Where should we start? And often the best place to start, if you are somebody who practices loving kindness already, well, ask yourself, who are the people that you tend to use in your loving kindness meditation? Now, this is often a very good place to start with changing your perceptions around. So, for example, if you have a favorite person that you use in your loving kindness meditation, then sometimes just take that person up in your mind and ask yourself, what are the good qualities of this person? and focus on those good qualities. Make them stronger. Focus on them again and again and again. Try to look at those qualities from different angles. Try to understand how important they are in the world, how helpful they are. And in this way, expand your sense of the positive in this person that you use in your meditation object. The second aspect of this is, of course, everybody, most people, you're going to see also some negative things. So the second thing to do with your meditation object is to find those negative qualities and forgive those negative qualities in that person. Realize that we are all, as human beings, we're all going to have things which are conditioned into us in a negative way, things which are very, very hard to get rid of, things which may have been instilled in us from childhood, things which may come from past lives, and that we all have these things, and that there is only one right way of dealing with it, and that is to forgive it, because it is so hard often to get rid of some of these negative qualities. We have to expect that. The wonder in the world is that there are people trying to change themselves, trying to be better. That is the amazing and remarkable thing. The remarkable thing is not that we see negative qualities in people. This is to be expected. So this is a way of enhancing your meditation object. Make use in your daily life, if you have some spare time somewhere, on the train, on the bus, at the red traffic light, whatever it is. You can do it almost at any stage. And remind yourself of the good qualities of this particular person or whatever it is. If you are not somebody who does so much meditation, you can still use this kind of perception, changing your perception of people. And the kind of people that I would recommend that you change your perception towards are the people that you interact with a lot in your daily life. Family members, and maybe colleagues at work, people that you see a lot, people that influence you a lot, people that and maybe upset you sometimes, you find it difficult to be equanimous and have kindness towards, particularly those people that you see a lot in your life. Because this is where our habits are the strongest, it's also the most important place sometimes to actually change our perceptions of these people. And again, it's not going to be easy, because the habits are so strong. It is quite difficult to actually change our perception of these people. But the results are going to be very, very powerful if you can do it. Because the people who are closest to us are also the people who influence us the most. If you can change your perceptions there, your attitude towards people is going to have a tremendous impact in your daily life. So do that. Look at your family members and actually reflect. Well, maybe they're not so bad as I think. Maybe some of these bad qualities that I sometimes see, maybe there's a good reason for why they have these qualities. Don't take your family members for granted. Remember that they have also had past lives. They have also had difficult times. They also are influenced by the world around them. Give them a break. Don't expect too much of them. And try to understand them in a new way. Try to be more forgiving and more accepting of those people who are closest to you. Even if you love them dearly, it's always some things in the people that are closest to us that we find difficult, we find maybe irritating, we find hard to deal with. So try to look there, if you can look at these things in a positive way. And of course, if you can do that, you can transform the most important relationships in your own life. If you can transform those relationships, wow, you're doing really, really well there. It becomes very powerful there. Now, the other person that is important to transform and change your perception of is the persons which you find very difficult in your life. We all might find some people, maybe a colleague at work, maybe somebody, I don't know, anybody basically, that we have to meet on a regular basis, but who we find very, very hard to get along with. We find it so difficult. I think everybody has these kind of people in their lives. So what should we do when there is people like that? And what we have to do is in this case, we can also try to look for the positive qualities, because everybody has positive qualities. But often it is more important to try to understand why they are the way they are. Why is it that they are so difficult? Why is it that I cannot get along with this person? And usually, if you look deeply enough, you will find that there's always a good reason for why people are the way they are. And once you understand the reason, then you can forgive them for the way they are. And often people who are particularly difficult are people who have gone through traumas and hard times in their lives. People who have gone through abuse, maybe at school, maybe at home even. People who just have had some sort of thing which have made them very difficult. And again, it can be even in a past life. We cannot even see what actually is there. And by looking at it in this way, by understanding that there's always a reason why people are the way they are. None of these things happen without conditions. We're all conditioned. And the negative things in people is always caused by something else. When you reflect like that, it is not so hard to forgive anymore. You can say they're not actually trying. It's not like some kind of self, some kind of ego in there, which says, I want to be nasty, I want to be bad. It doesn't work like that. It's because of conditions and causes that they do bad things. They do things which are not nice to others. Reflect like that, and then you can forgive. You can say, okay, it has its cause, it has its reasons. It's all right. You may not be able to find a particular cause or a particular reason why people do bad things. It doesn't matter. You don't have to find a particular cause or reason. Just remember that this is all about non-self. People do things because of causes and conditions. Because of that, we can be absolutely sure that the reason they do it is not because they want to do it, but because they are propelled to do this by something else, some other cause and condition in their life. In this way, even the most difficult people, we can forgive, and we can allow them to be a little crazy, a little stupid, and all these things, and it doesn't really matter. And of course, the famous story, which I'm not sure where it comes from, but I know Ajahn Brahm tells this story. And that is the famous story of the man who goes to the market to buy some eggs for his wife or something like that. And he goes to the market and he gets yelled at by this crazy fellow at this marketplace. And this fellow yells at him and tells him how terrible he is, how stupid he is. And this man gets really upset. He's never met this man before, and yet he yells at him in this terrible way. So he comes back after been to the market, back to his wife, and tells his wife, it was terrible. I went to the market, I wanted to do a good act, I wanted to help you out, and all I get is this abuse from this stranger I've never met before. That is extremely unfair. And then, of course, the story is that his wife tells him, well, this man, he's actually crazy. He doesn't have it together. When he was a child or whatever, something terrible happened to him, and he's been completely out of his mind ever since. And of course, once you understand that somebody is crazy, you say, okay, it's fine then, it's no problem anymore. And it's the same thing, of course. This simile is actually about anger. Simile is that when somebody is angry, they are essentially crazy. But you can extend that simile to do when anybody does stupid things, things which are immoral, things which are not nice and not kind. Again, it's a kind of derangement of the mind, a kind of delusion which has taken over. I think everybody at heart ultimately wants to be kind, because we all understand at the end of the day that kindness is what brings us happiness. Anger never brings happiness. There's something inside of us which knows that, and yet it is so difficult sometimes to practice. So because these people essentially from a Buddhist point of view are slightly deranged, then reflect like that. Well, this person is a bit mad, it's a bit deranged. And again, it's so much easier to forgive them when you know that there is a cause, there is a reason for the way they act. And of course, this is very important, because one person has the power to make our life so miserable if we don't actually forgive them. If the same person, we have to meet them every day, they can sort of drag us away from our spiritual path, drag us away from having a wholesome and good mind. So it's incredibly useful to be able to forgive that person and forget and let go of those troubles and those difficulties in our life. And again, this gives rise to great enhancement of our spiritual practice. So these are some of the ways that I recommend you to change your perception of people around you. In particular, change your perception of your meditation object. shine up that meditation object. Shine up this person that you use in the loving kindness meditation. Make him or her beautiful. See all the good qualities. Forgive the bad ones. And then you are going to find that your loving kindness meditation takes off so much more powerfully here, because you're starting off with something beautiful straight away here. But the very last aspect now I want to talk about is just very briefly about the meditation practice itself. And the first thing about the loving kindness meditation is to actually choose an object which is suitable. And of course, you will already understand from what I've said already that a suitable object is a person, for example, who it's easy to see the good qualities in her. If there is a particular person that you can see good qualities in very easily, it doesn't matter who it is, it can be anybody in this whole world. If you find it very easy to see the good qualities even in some kind of despot, then that's fine. You can even use that person for your loving kindness meditation. But use somebody who is easy to see the good qualities in. Somebody, when you close your eyes, you can see them in your mind's eye, almost smiling, almost radiating a kind of goodness. If you have that sort of person, great. And then shine that person up even more throughout your daily practice. So that is using an ordinary person, somebody in your life, as a first kind of object that you want to use. It doesn't have to be another person. It can also be yourself. You can be use yourself as your main loving kindness object. Now, many people find this difficult, but I think also some people don't find it so hard. Some people feel good about themselves. And if you do that, it's actually great to start off with yourself and wish yourself well, wish yourself happiness, and wish yourself freedom from suffering. But also, don't forget to also shine yourself up as a meditation object. Remind yourself of your own good qualities. Don't dismiss the good that you do in the world. Don't think that this is nothing, keeping the 5 precepts. Remember, this is remarkable. Remember how much good it does in the world, how much freedom from fear, how much freedom, how much trust you're bringing into the world by keeping these 5 precepts. Don't be afraid of feeling good about yourself for these things. Don't get a big ego, of course, but just have a sense of goodness about yourself. Feeling a kind of self-esteem that you know that you're doing good, you're doing something positive. So shine yourself up, because we all know that if you can have loving kindness for yourself, it's also so much easier to have loving kindness for other people. It always, if we have a bad self-esteem, we don't have a good feeling for ourselves, it is not really possible to have that much loving kindness for other people either. We have to have a good feeling for ourselves first of all. It's actually terribly important. So if you can start with yourself, great. Now a third type of object that you can use in your loving kindness meditation is in fact not having any particular person at all. And one of the things that you may have heard if you follow the meditation I did this evening just before the talk is that focus on all the people around you. Now all the people around you is basically nobody in particular. It's just a kind of the average person in this crowd, average person who keeps precepts, who does what is good in the world. And because it is somebody without a face, because it's not anybody in particular, you can almost create whatever sort of person you want inside of your mind. You can give them all the good qualities of being moral, kind, compassionate, generous. And because it is an imaginary person, they don't have any bad qualities at all. There's nothing there at all. It's just an average person in the crowd. So because of that, sometimes using an imaginary person like that can be very powerful, because you can imbue them with whatever qualities you want to. And in fact, when you read the suttas, the word of the Buddha, and you see what he says about loving kindness meditation, he never actually says that we should do it towards any particular person in the suttas. I'm not saying that that is wrong, but what he says in the suttas is that we spread out loving kindness, for example, just to the eastern direction. We pervade the whole eastern direction, or whole area, with loving kindness. And of course, the consequence of that is that we're not really focusing on people in particular, we're focusing on people in general. And this is something you can do with people everywhere in the world. Remember the people's frailties, remember the troubles that people have in their life. Remember, and I always remember this, everybody wants to be happy. Everybody wants to be content. Nobody in this world is happy enough. Nobody is as happy as they want to be. Well, extremely few anyway. So generally speaking, you can have compassion with people because they want to be more happy, and often they can't find that happiness in their life. They're striving, looking in the wrong place, striving instead of looking at the mind and purifying the mind. They're trying to find that contentment and satisfaction in material things, in possessions, in wealth, in a kind of promotions, in social position, in all these things, in praise. And this is never, ever going to make them happy and content. And yet, that is where most people seek their happiness. When you look at it that way, it's sad in a sense that so many people out there do this. They want to be happy, and yet they're looking in the wrong place. So wish them well. It's not that difficult to give rise to compassion when you see how people are going in the wrong way and doing the wrong thing to attain that which they want most of all in this world. So that is the third kind of thing I would recommend. Try a faceless person in your meditation practice if it's difficult for you to use particular people. And the last thing you can do, and that is not to use a person at all, but you can use anything else which gives rise to compassion and kindness inside of you. Some people use animals, apparently even some people use plants, and anything which you can give a personality to, which you feel, anything which you can have a sense of loving kindness towards, is enough to at least get that meditation started. And then, once you have chosen the object which you find works best for you, then again, polish that object up. Make it beautiful, make it bright, make it something with lots of good qualities, and forgive all the bad ones. And then when you sit down, you close your eyes, bring that object to mind. If it's a person, see them in your mind's eye, beautiful, radiant, happy, see them in a good way. And when you have that, then you will find it much easier to wish them well, to wish them happiness, wish them all these good things, because you have such a positive picture inside of you. Okay, I think that's enough for this evening. Okay, that's the end of the talk. Okay, so are there any questions? Lawrence at the back here. Yeah, great. I mean, aliens are probably the most faceless of all, right? You don't really know anything about them. So maybe that's a really good way to start. Yeah. Go for the aliens. And this is important. I mean, sometimes we have this idea that aliens are somehow very fearful. They got 3 heads and, strange antennas and all this kind of things. But the reality, of course, from a Buddhist point of view, that they're going to be suffering just like us. Not going to be any different. That is the commonality between any alien or anybody else and us. That there is suffering there. There's a search for happiness, not gaining all the happiness you want in life. So yeah, sure, you can use the aliens as well. Yes, Chris? Yeah. I can't remember him saying that in a particular sutra, actually. Yeah. I could be wrong, but I can't actually remember that off the top of my head. But it's not absolutely inevitable. As you say, if you do practice loving kindness, you can actually avoid that. And one of the things the Buddha said that is that loving kindness practice is the escape from all anger and all conflict. So if you practice it to its extreme and to its conclusion, essentially you don't have any anger anymore. Not permanently, but temporarily at least. So if you keep that practice going again and again every day, it's actually possible to get to the point where you never have any anger. That is possible. I mean, that is a very profound sense of loving kindness, but it certainly is possible. So if you live with people like that, it's possible to live in a community where there's no conflict whatsoever here. Obviously, it's going to be extremely rare here. Yeah. Yes, sir. Okay, so you're asking that loving kindness does not dispel doubt. Can I clarify that? Well, the doubt is often like doubt about the Buddha's teachings, understanding the Buddha's teachings properly here. And to understand this, you can, for example, you can imagine a person who's a Christian here. Now, it is possible for a Christian person, just like a Buddhist, to develop loving kindness. And yet, they are not going to agree with your ideas about Buddhism. They're not going to say Buddhism is the best religion. They're going to say Christianity is the best religion. And yet, they may have loving kindness in their heart. So from their point of view, they don't have any confidence in Buddhism. They have confidence in Christianity here. So there is something in Buddhism called view, and this is part of view. You have an inherent view from the start point that Christianity is right. And because you have that view, just because you have loving kindness is not going to change that. That view is going to have to change in different ways. Through understanding the suttas, through coming to an acceptance of the Buddha's teachings, and ultimately through having insight into a reality, would actually see things properly for yourself.